can anyone that has ever considered being a founder or flirted with the idea of launching your own project raise your hand? Perfect. Those that are interested in just like whether it is that you're already part of the industry or you're just learning about Web3 for the first time and are looking to get a job with a team or like an already existing company, raise your hand. Perfect. So as our panel says, we're going to be discussing what are some avenues and what are some ways in which people and all of you, hopefully, if you have ideas, whether it is because you belong to a team or whether it is you want to launch your own project, how can you access funds to achieve these goals that you have? And I'm really excited to be sharing the space with all of these wonderful people that work in different protocols that lead different grants programs and different initiatives. My name is Lau Namu. I am the founder of Metrics Garden Labs. We're an impact design and impact studio. We focus on researching, building frameworks and models to evaluate impact in the Web3 space, create prototypes and products around that. I've also done a fair good amount of research into different aspects in the Web3 ecosystem. One of them as part of MetaGov's Grant Innovation Lab, in which we looked at several of the different grants programs in the ecosystem and found some very interesting insights. I highly recommend you to go and read it if you want to learn more about what protocols are looking for when funding different projects. And now I'm gonna give it up to my panelists so that each one of you, if you can please introduce yourselves and let us know what's your name, what's your role, and what is the most valuable lesson that you've had so far in the Web3 space when it comes to funding?
Okay. Hi, I'm Taya. I'm CEO of All the Women, and I'm really happy to be here today and that we're having this conversation because I think it's one of the most fundamental problems in Web3, and that is one of my learnings. So I've been in tech for 20 years, maybe even more than that. So I started in Web 1 a long time ago. I was a founder 3 times. 2 of my startups still exist and run successfully. But what I have learned, so I joined the crypto space 4 years, over 4 years ago. That's when, the whole promise of Web3 ethos was there, composability, pseudonymity, that anyone can be anything. No one cares about your gender, race, religion, anything. You can be completely pseudonymous, and all that matters is your on-chain credentials and your on-chain reputation. So I was planning to build this decentralized reputation protocol so that people can gain trust based on your credentials, based on your on-chain activity, which props you claimed, which events you went to potentially, or what kind of donations you made, what kind of transactions you did. So I really believed in it. And I was like, hey, that's the environment that is inclusive by design. This is where, as a woman, as a founder, I struggled with this fundraising. Here, I won't have the same challenges. However, unfortunately, in reality, it's not the case. Currently, only 7% of founders are women in Web3. And they receive, according to data, 4 times less funding than men. It's not much different from, regular world. So unfortunately, that's my learning about Web3 and all the things that we've been through. But I still believe in crypto rails, believe in Web3 ethos and the potential that we can achieve with this. That's why I'm still here.
Hi, I'm Gemma. I work at the Stellar Development Foundation on the ecosystem growth team. And we run a program that's called the Stellar Community Fund, which is an open application awards program for builders that are building on Stellar. And then we provide grants from all the way from small ones, from folks who have gone through a really intensive boot camp and have gotten one-on-one mentorship and been able to build up their idea, all the way to folks who are building and then launching on the Stellar mainnet and even support beyond that. And I think in thinking about this, in talking with so many of our founders, we had held our conference last month in London, and we got the opportunity to meet. I met hundreds of people who have been funded through the Stellar Community Fund. Was that no one said no one was like, hey, that money was awesome, right? Everyone was like, hey, getting to connect with you about this, or that time I was stuck and you were able to connect me to someone on your product team who was able to help, or the marketing support we got. The thing that is so important, and that I think what allows our awards programs to sort of set themselves apart, is this support that's not monetary. And so I think really understanding the importance of that in a grants program has been my most important learning.
Hi, my name is Alex. I have a corporate background previously before Lido, and I was working in Big Four financial audit firm, and little bit experience also have in analytical and planning operations. So my learnings from Web3 are those that unfortunately there is a real world outside the crypto also still, and when the crypto hits this mid space, it often creates some tension, and your crystal can ruined at that moment, but still you like gain new experience with this collaboration with Midspace. Also you gain this experience and put it into the work, and you like review your hopes and put them into the work, and you now have new vision of the future, and you still hope that this crystal castles can be rebuilt, but in more stronger, hardened way. So yeah, and the grants are pretty open, I believe, and like Taya mentioned, I think pretty often it really doesn't matter who you are or maybe what you are, but still this clashes with the mid-space. That what creates this really similar paradigms the previous experience.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think this is it's a really good starting point into the conversation, like realizing one, unfortunately, even if we want to think that we're breaking these paradigms from past experiences or like past spaces in the Web2 space, we're still seeing the same type of behaviors being replicated in the space. And then what you mentioned, Gemma, as well, of funding and support doesn't only mean money, right? Like for founders and project leads that are trying to get their projects off the ground, there's other things that are needed. That is not only financial resources that will enable your project to thrive and your product to gain adoption. And as a founder, one of the things that I found when approaching this funding question is that it's actually very nuanced. Like understanding whether you want to go down the grants route, or you want to get VC funding, or if you want to bootstrap your project. It largely depends on the stage of your project, what the needs are for the project. And for other founders and other people that are in this room and are thinking of launching their own endeavors, what if each of you could please reply, what is a framework that you'd suggest they use or that you have used previously in launching your own projects to approach this question of, should I bootstrap my project? Should I go down the grants route and only build it through grants? Or like, should I start looking for VC funding?
Sure, I can start. I think this experience comes from non-Web3 first. I was a founder in Web2 space. I did with VCs, grants, everything. And it's really important to understand what's your stage, that's for sure. Early stage, a bit later, is it still, Series A, pre-seed, and so on. You don't want to dilute if you go to VCs, it's always dilution of shares, and it's always control from outside. The more investors you have, the more control from the outside there is. There will be always pressure. You think, oh, I'm a founder, now I can do whatever I want. It's not the case. The moment you let in VCs, they're largely defining your agenda. There will be some pressure to deliver more on the revenue, while you think it needs to be more on another metric. It's just reality of it. But at the same time, I feel like it's not really Web3 related, but AI. I see more and more that early stage funding is being challenged. You can go to the POC stage much faster than before. Do you really need VC money at this early stage when you can get traction before, you even spend, first 10K or something? You can really bootstrap to certain degrees. I think what is interesting about Web3 is that funding here is different. Like it started with like, you remember probably ICOs, like a lot of that was scam, but it is fundraising. Then NFTs projects, like that's fundraising as well. Grants, I think Stella is doing great, but also like you might have heard of Gitcoin. They've been doing it for a long, long time. Those are great as well. It has challenges. And again, I think it helps a lot for the first early stage. If you go in for further stages, you need to go for bigger VCs. There are also Web3 VCs. I know quite a few of them. I think the game is changing. I can't say how exactly, but it feels like VC game investment will be changing next few years. Web3 part of it, AI revolution is part of it. I would recommend not to look for investment until you feel like, okay, I am ready. I know what I'm doing. And I have at least some initial, product market fit signals. And grants, I think it's good to explore. Like grants, you don't have too much obligation for VCs. You can just deliver on certain metrics. And I think, grants is a good starting point to explore what you want and what you can achieve with it.
Yeah, so I'll focus. You set me up there. I'll hit it home. So talk more about grants. I think the first thing sort of internally is to really have like a reality check with yourself and with your team about the stage that your project is in. There's nothing bad about being early stage or about being ready for an accelerator or whatever it is. And ultimately, I understand the desire to go for the bigger sum of money, like, oh, this will give us longer runway or whatever. But ultimately, the thing to think about, I think, is the support that comes with the grant that's not monetary, and that by maybe taking a step and trying to get a little bit further than maybe your project is currently at, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot by not getting that support that then you're going to need later. And so I think just really being honest with yourself about that, and even if that means starting with maybe a smaller sum and getting a lot of mentorship and hands-on support so that you're really set up and ready if then you choose to go to VC funding or a larger grant. And then the other thing I think is just doing your research on the Web3 grant space and on what kind of grants you're looking for. Like, are you a public good? Would you be eligible for quadratic funding? Do you have enough runway that you could do something with retroactive funding? Or like, is someone running a request for proposals that your project fits perfectly in? Or do you need just sort of an open prospective grants program, in which case you can come to the Stella Community Fund? But I think, make sure you do your research, find the program that fits, find the program and the people that are going to be good support for you. And just to shout this back out, I think a great resource for that is the State of Web3 Grants report put out by MetaGov and GrantStack. It's got like really great, pretty objective information about like 13 grant programs. So if you're just sort of looking for a place to start and you don't know where to find this information, I think that's a great jumping off point.
So as a potential grant receiver, or maybe team looking for some VC to support the project, I personally would recommend you to think your plan ahead of all these rounds of receiving funds. What you will do with that money, how many funds you actually need to make a proof of concept, to make some MVP. Because actually, I agree with Gemma that you can actually have a lot of help outside of forums and communities free of charge. And because you can actually find your new teammates there that will probably even bring more, they will put more work in the project that you expect. And maybe it will be more useful even with than having tons of funds from the start from some VC whose heart you ignited with your incredible project. So my suggestion here is not to lose your mind because of all these opportunities out there, and have your cold mind put in the work, plan ahead, and make baby steps, then run if you clearly see your aim and clearly see the opportunity.
I think this is a really good point. Even though we're talking about, okay, yes, we want funds, there's a lot of money out there in the Web3 ecosystem. Like, if we're being very honest, everyone is going to try and throw money at you. So I think it's a really important decision, just as you were mentioning, and like Gemma mentioned it, Alex also mentioned it, and it does. Receiving a grant from an ecosystem can very much look like entering a relationship with a VC, in that there are going to be expectations, not only in terms of metrics or KPIs that you will need to deliver with your product or with your project, but there's also some sometimes unmentioned or unclear expectations that the ecosystems have when they are giving a grant. Sometimes they are laid out there in terms of this is how long we want you to be part of our ecosystem, and this is the type of impact that we want you to see to generate as a builder in the ecosystem. And sometimes it's also not clearly laid out there. I know that the three of you have participated in running different grants programs, so I would love to hear, and it might be very useful as well, what are some of these considerations that grantees, people looking to get a grant from each of your ecosystems, should keep in mind in terms of what are the healthy expectations that you have when giving a grant?
Sure. Actually, we don't have a grant program yet as it is, but we have been funding and supporting women who are artists and content creators and event organizers. And now we're moving on to builders. So basically extending and launching an official grant program. So just quick clarification for everyone. So for us, it has not been official. It's not like we had these frameworks and criteria for people. But for us, it's very clear. We're older women. We're supporting women, especially builders. We want to support women in terms of like if it's a woman founder, if there's a C-level woman on the team, or it's a project. Maybe it's all done by men, but for some reason they decided to do it for women. Their product is for women, their services for women. That's our basically the only criteria. We're not obliging anyone to build on a specific L1 or L2, which is very often the case. So for us, it's like women-focused funding. You get extra points if you build on Tezos or Etherlink because we belong to that ecosystem, but it's not necessary. So that's pretty much the criteria for now. We want to see how it goes with this extended type of grants that we're launching. And we're going to see a lot of probably farmers, which has been a challenge in the grant space. But I guess like in our case, it will be a bit easier to sort it out. Because again, like it's not about ecosystem adoption per se. It's more about impact on women in the space.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is that the funding for the Stellar Community Fund comes from the Stellar Development Foundation, which is where I work, and it's the foundation that sort of cultivates the growth of the network. And the mission of that foundation is to create equitable access to a global financial system. It's right there. That's not a requirement for projects that are submitting to the Stellar Community Fund, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, I think if you think about our voters who are our community members and other folks who work at SDF, they're invested in this community because they are invested in that mission. Stellar is also optimized for payments for financial services. And so I think a lot of folks submit just thinking, oh, this is another grants program, and maybe haven't looked deep enough into sort of what Stellar is optimized for and also what the community that's around Stellar is interested in. And then the other thing I'll say is just if you're submitting a grant submission to Stellar, make sure you don't talk about how excited you are to build on Solana in it, which is great. I'm so excited you're going to build on Solana, but just quick proofread there, I think, is a good thing to do.
So if we talk about grants in Lido, I would say from the first-time viewer from the site, it could look really sophisticated because we have like egg requests, it's ecosystem grants requests. We have Lego, it's Lido Ecosystem Grants Organization, and we also have a subcommittee into Lego or the Community Lifeguards Initiative. And I would say that if you wanted to apply something similar or for Lido, you would like to first of all understand what problems you're solving. So if you're solving something particular useful for particular certain protocol or app or community, do your research what needs they have, like what do they have grants program or something like that similar, or maybe even their competitors working on something similar that you want to introduce, and you can search for grants there. I don't know. It's really vast opportunities there. But even if you're doing something like a commonwealth for the communities out there or the network itself, you still can look for some grants program like Lego, for example, because we support builders and initiatives, not only purely tech ones, but also researches, helping people out there just for doing cool stuff or being into trouble. So there's always a way. You just need to understand what you're solving, what you want to do. And I think you just need to find a path to the synergy with some other communities which are already adult enough to help you.
Perfect. And we're almost at 5 minutes. Well, we're at 5 minutes before we close. I have one question for each one of you. If you can share in like 3 words, 5 words at most, what would you say is the first thing that you review to decide, should I continue reading this grant application?
Conviction. I want to see conviction that people actually believe in what they're saying there. Even if it's written with ChatGPT, I would see if it's real. It can be written, like many of us are not native speakers. You can use it, but it should not be generic. And conviction, like if you see it's generic, like you see it, it's not there. Like I really believe that founders have to have conviction. It has to be either a problem that they want to solve, or something else that they really believe the future is going to be like this, and I want to contribute to it. And this is how I feel about it. Without it, like I think it's just generic.
Okay, I'm going to do this in 4 words. Budget, use case, team, and achievability.
I think, unfortunately, I cannot state it more better than Gemma, because it's about solving the problem. It's about accountability and knowing what to do. So if you know what to do, you gotta have a plan. And if you have a plan, you can present it. Of course, the previous experience of solving similar problems could be also useful, but that's not like 100 requirement. Like you can be a first-time adopter and still you have a high chances if you prove that you're doing something really useful, you have a plan, and basically, I think that's the points are the most critical.
Perfect. So I do want to leave some minutes in case people, and I hope there are questions out there from people that want to access funds, whether it is to this 3 particular upcoming grant program and 2 existing grant programs. We're wrapping up. If each of you can please tell our audience where they can find you in the interwebs, and if they run into you this next week at DEF CON or any of the many side events that are happening, what should they come and chat you up on?
Okay, so Twitter is Taika, like Thailand, but then Thai KA. You can also catch me up and get my Telegram. I do mentor pro bono people. If you can find a slot on my calendar, that's also an option. I have been doing it for quite a while, especially founders, especially at the early stage, especially women.
Yeah, you can find me at the booth in there. Come check out our passkey activation and make a $10 donation to charity if you haven't. I'm also on Twitter at I'll give you my Twitter if you come find me. And yeah, check out Stellar.org. Also, we're running monthly rounds of the Stellar Community Fund. There's a round open right now. When that round closes, there will be another one open. If you're at all interested in that, please come chat with me. We'd love to get more people, more women, especially building on Stellar. So if you have any interest, please come find me, and I'd love to chat about that.
You can find my Telegram handle on lega.lido.fi. And also, I'll be around here for some time also, and you will also can see me at DEF CON. But don't forget about other council members of Lego. There are plenty of them. You can also find their handles on the lego.lido.fi.
Perfect. So you can also find me at Lau Namu. No, I'm actually lying. At Lau Namu in Telegram, at 0xynamu on Twitter. I'm also happy to provide any insights into grants in the Optimism ecosystem, Cello ecosystem. I'm a public good steward there. I'm a badge holder and delegate in Optimism. And I've done ample research in the grants ecosystem for the EF, for Stellar, for several other ones. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you, everyone.